Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome to another tumbler tutorial. In this video, we are going to make a tumbler design for one of my good friends. He gave me an old Stanley of his and said, do whatever you want. He gave me a few little guidelines, but ultimately it was creator choice, which sometimes is really stressful. But in this case, I knew pretty much exactly what I wanted to do. So today I'm going to take you through kind of how to take a few guidelines and turn them into a design that makes sense, I guess. So I hope you all enjoy this video. If you do, make sure you hit the thumbs up button down below. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel as well if you don't want to miss any new videos. I upload brand new tutorials every Tuesday and Saturday. Down below in the description box, you'll find a full supply list with links and discount codes. You'll also find a link to join my exclusive mentorship group, along with a link to my website if you'd like to purchase any of my tumblers or any digital files that I design. As always, let me know what you think down below in the comments, and I think that's it. Let's go! Alright, so we're starting with our plain, well-loved Stanley here, and we're going to get started on our design. So some of the guidelines I was given, or the list of things that he liked or wanted incorporated, were orange, which is his favorite color. He loves cats, he wanted it super sparkly, and he wanted some sort of rainbow vibe or element in the design. So those are my guidelines, and here's what I did to incorporate all of those things into one design. Starting out, I'm going to put my tumbler onto my little turner rod, and to do that I use my biggest foam insert. I get those on Amazon, and then I wrap a little bit of bubble wrap around that foam insert so that I can make it a little wider so that it really fits snugly inside the tumbler and we don't have any wobbly things, or we're not worried about it falling off the rod or anything as it spins. So that's on there and secure. The first step is to base paint our cup. So we're going to do, of course, a peekaboo design, my favorite thing ever. And to start out, for the base of our peekaboo, we're going to do orange glitter because orange is his favorite color. So we're checking that off our list of wishes for this design. So I'm using my orange acrylic paint here, and I'm just going to paint the body of the tumbler. I am ignoring the handle at this point because we're not going to do peekaboo elements on the handle, but we are going to paint and glitter it when we do the actual peekaboo portion later. So I'm just ignoring that right now, just painting the body of the tumbler with my orange acrylic paint. I let my paint dry for about 30 to 40 minutes, and now I'm ready to apply my glitter. Now to apply my glitter, I'm going to use my UV resin. Of course though, as I always say, you can use any adhesive that you prefer. It doesn't matter, just use whatever you're comfortable with. I like using UV resin to apply my glitter because one, it cures really quickly in front of the UV lamp, and you get a epoxy method finish without having to mix or wait for epoxy to cure. So I like using UV resin, but of course, use whatever you want. So I'm going to put a thin layer of the UV resin all over my tumbler. I think for this 40-ounce cup, I used maybe like 5 to 6-ish milliliters. I am using a fine cut glitter here, so if I was using a chunkier cut, I might have used a little bit more UV resin to help that glitter lie flat, but because we're using a fine cut, we can use a little bit less epoxy. So for the glitter, I'm using Gryffindor 2.0 from Peachy Olive Glitters. This is a super beautiful fine cut metallic orange. It's got a little bit of a shift to it. It's so gorgeous. I feel like people don't love orange glitters, but this one is really beautiful. So if you don't have it, I would recommend getting it, especially for Halloween. So I'm going to put the glitter all over the body of the tumbler, and then I'm going to set this in front of my UV lamp to spin and cure probably for about an hour. I want to make sure that the lamp has enough time to penetrate through the glitter and make sure that that UV resin is fully cured before we go in with our first coat of regular epoxy. I'm using my Flynn Sisters Fast Cure epoxy for this first coat, and I'm using about 40 milliliters of the epoxy on this raw glitter. I always like to do a little bit thicker of a coat for my first coat over the raw glitter, just because I feel like the glitter soaks up the epoxy a little bit. And I did not seal my glitter here because we just used the one color. It's a fine cut. didn't matter if it moved, it's not going to be super pokey or anything. So I just let the UV resin cure and then went right into my regular epoxy coats. So after this coat is applied, I'm going to let it spin for about 6 hours, and then I'll add a second coat of epoxy, again, the Flynn Sisters Fast Cure, on top. And that coat was, I think, probably 30 milliliters. So again, a little bit of a thicker coat, but this is a really big tumbler. So if you're using a smaller tumbler, you'll want to use a little bit less epoxy. After our second coat of epoxy is cured, we can move into cleaning up the top rim and doing any necessary sanding before we apply our peekaboo stencils. So with my craft knife, I'm going to just chip off any excess glitter or epoxy that's hanging out above that top rim. I want to really get that cleaned up super duper well, especially because we're doing a peekaboo and we're going to do some sanding over our peekaboo later. We want to make sure that we really clean up this top rim super well now, so that when we sand down our white glitter that we're going to put on top of our peekaboo, we don't sand down and show any orange glitter underneath that, if that makes sense. So I'm going to fleck off that glitter with my craft knife, and then I'm going to take a sanding block and really just sand the heck out of that top rim to make sure we expose that stainless steel and we don't sand down to show the glitter a little bit later. Hopefully that makes sense. There wasn't really much sanding to do on the rest of the cup because the glitter is fine. We did 2 really nice coats of epoxy, so I'm not going to really sand the body of the tumbler. Once I'm done sanding the top rim though, I am going to spray a paper towel with some rubbing alcohol and just give the whole cup a really good wipe down, make sure we don't have any sanding residue or anything anywhere. And then once we've done that, we can move into applying our stencils. So the next item on the wish list was cats. So of course we're going to do some cute little peekaboo cat heads all over the tumbler. So I cut my stencils out on my stencil vinyl, and if you want to use this same file, I will have both the silhouette stencil part as well as the outline listed in a pack on my website. I'll link that down below in the description box for you. So to start out, we're just going to place these cat head stencils all over the tumbler. And I think my sizing, if I remember correctly, I made them maybe 2 inches wide for each one. I wanted them to be big enough, obviously, that you would see a lot of this orange glitter through the peekaboo, but not so big that we couldn't fit a lot of them all over the tumbler. Also, just a side note, you can ignore those 2 pieces of painter's tape that are on the cup. I initially had a different decal idea for this and I pivoted as I was placing these stencils on, so just ignore those pieces of painter's tape. You don't need to do that. After I had all of my stencils applied, I spray painted the entire tumbler with some white spray paint. Then I marked off all of my stencils with a Sharpie so that I can find them underneath my glitter. And then I added some more epoxy to my tumbler so that I can apply the glitter on top. For this round, I'm just using regular epoxy. So I've got my Flynn Sisters Fast Cure epoxy spread all over the tumbler. And now I'm going in with my top layer of glitter. For this top layer, I'm using Parabatai from Peachy Olive Glitters. This is one of my favorite whites of all time. It's so sparkly and it's got so many it's so beautiful. So I'm just going to cover the entire tumbler with Parabatai, and then I'll immediately go into removing my stencil vinyl. To peel up all of my stencils, I'm going to use my pin pen from TECKWRAP Craft. I really like this because you can kind of just like stab the stencil vinyl and pull it up. But of course, if you want to use tweezers or whatever you like to use to peel up your vinyl, you just want to be really careful as you do this because you don't want to scratch that top layer of glitter. So take your time, be patient, and this is literally the best part of doing peekaboos. You get to reveal the glitter underneath. Oh, it's my favorite thing ever of all time. I love peekaboo tumblers, as you guys all know, I'm sure. All right, after all of our decals are peeled up, we're going to let our cup sit and cure for about 4 to 6 hours, and then we'll add another 2 coats of epoxy on top of our white glitter. Because I used enough epoxy in my epoxy method application, I did not seal that white glitter on top because the epoxy held the glitter really, really well. But if you're using another type of adhesive, I would recommend sealing your top layer of glitter before you add epoxy to make sure that your top peekaboo glitter doesn't move into your actual peekaboo, if that makes any sense. So now it's time to do that second round of sanding that I talked about earlier in the video. We've got 2 coats of epoxy over our top layer of glitter. So now we're going to sand down that top rim again. And you can see that when I sand down over that white glitter on the top rim, we're not showing any orange glitter underneath, because when we did our 2 coats over our orange glitter before we did the peekaboo, we sanded down enough for that stainless steel to be exposed. So now when we're sanding down this second time, we don't have any glitter to see, it's just stainless steel. So I'm going to go through again with my 80 grit sanding block, sand down the top rim to expose that line of stainless steel so we can get a really good seal with our epoxy up there to finish the cup off. I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to sand any other spots on the tumbler that are a little rough. Parabatai is a little bit more of a chunkier cut. It's a mini chunky, so it might need a little bit of sanding. After that, I'm going to wash my cup with dish soap and water, and now we can apply these super cute little outlines to our cat peekaboo. I cut my outlines out of black textured metallic vinyl from TECKWRAP Craft. Just in case we had any spots that were a little rough on the tumbler, the textured metallic vinyl is going to basically cover all of that up. You're not going to see or feel any lumps or bumps underneath the outlines. They're also really thin, so if you wanted to use regular black vinyl, you totally can. To apply the outlines to my tumblers, I'm going to use my black grid transfer tape from TECKWRAP Craft. This stuff is so good at holding on to the textured metallic vinyl. I feel like sometimes the regular transfer tape that I use just doesn't grab onto the texture, but the black grid is amazing. It picks it right up. So now it's time to line these peekaboo outlines up with the peekaboo underneath. Now, again, when you're doing this, you want to make sure that you resize your outlines just a little bit. Like I would make them a tiny little smidgen bigger than when they're just regularly sized to match the stencil. Because we're putting glitter and epoxy over our peekaboo, we want to make sure that the outlines are sized to accommodate for that. Now, I didn't do the best job of resizing. I probably should have made them a little bit bigger, but that's okay. Just make them like a little bigger so that you can ensure that you cover up the whole peekaboo section and that you don't have little slivers of your stencil peeking out from underneath your outline. So I'm just going to go through and outline all of my cat peekaboos, and they're all going to come to life because they've got these cute little faces on them now. Once all the cats have been outlined, we can move on to our next little decal area. Initially, I had planned on putting a big decal like on the body of the tumbler, but the peekaboo cats were really just like getting me, so I didn't want to cover any of them up. So I decided to do a decal on the handle. So I'm going to measure my handle both lengthwise and widthwise so I can size my decal to fit perfectly in this handle section. Now, unfortunately, my camera hates me and didn't film me applying this decal at all. So what I did was I created the Cat Dad text, cut it out of my white regular Oracal 651 vinyl, and then I took my alcohol ink markers and I colored each letter with a color of the rainbow so that we check off our rainbow element. And this was so easy and fun to do. I am definitely going to do this again in the future. If you have alcohol ink markers, you can color your vinyl, which is so awesome. So after doing that, I let that alcohol ink dry on the decals overnight to make sure that they were fully dry before I added another coat of epoxy to the tumbler. We're going to add some extra glitter into this coat of epoxy, so I'm first taking my plain old regular epoxy. Again, I'm using the Flynn Sisters Fast Cure here, and I'm going to put about 25 milliliters on the entire cup, but then I'm going to save about probably like 10. So in all, I mixed up a lot because I'm doing multiple cups, but in all you'll need between 30 and 40 milliliters for this coat because you're going to put on 25, and then I'm going to take my glitter and mix that into my remaining 10 milliliters of epoxy. The glitter I'm mixing in to my epoxy is Chandler Bling from Peachy Olive Glitters. This is a really pretty, super holographic, look at that rainbow shift, oh my goodness. It's a chunky cut, so it's going to add a lot of depth and dimension to the top layer of our tumbler. And when I'm putting this on my cup, I'm trying to just focus it on the white areas of the tumbler. I don't really want any of this holographic to get into our cat peekaboo sections. I really just want to keep those that plain Gryffindor 2.0 glitter. So just focusing really on the white sections to bring in some more sparkle and some more rainbow. After that layer of epoxy was cured, I was ready to move on to the outline for our Cat Dad decal. Now I cut this out of the same textured black metallic vinyl that we used for the cat outlines, and I'm just going to place these letter by letter on the decal. Now when I cut this out, I obviously kept it the same as the white decal, but some of the letters were a little wonky, or like I moved them when I applied the decal, which you guys unfortunately didn't see. Again, sorry about that. But I'm just going to cut this down letter by letter so that I can make sure that the outline is placed as perfectly as possible around each of those letters within the decal. Once the decal outline was placed, I added my final 2 coats of epoxy using the Flynn Sisters Artist Cure epoxy, and that was it. We are all done. So here is the final tumbler design. I am so happy and excited about how this turned out, and I really hope you all enjoyed this tutorial. Of course, let me know what you think down below in the comments, and if you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit the thumbs up down below. Don't forget to subscribe if you are not already, and as always, thank you all so much for watching my channel. I truly appreciate you more than you know, and I'm so grateful for all of you. Okay, I think that's it. I'll see you all in my next video. Love you. Bye. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up down below. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Made by Manny and Mal. You can join my mentorship group at the website on your screen. I'd love to have you in the Elite fam. Be sure to subscribe to my channel if you are not already so you don't miss any of my new videos. And while you're here, here's another video for you to check out. I want to say a huge thank you to my channel members and my Elite fam members. You guys make this channel possible. Okay, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Love you. Bye.